Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar brought to you by Techstrong and Precisely. My name is Jared Harris, and I'll be your host for today's discussion. We've got a great discussion ahead of us, but before we begin, I have a few housekeeping notes. Today's event is being recorded, so if you miss any of our discussion and you'd like to share with a friend, the on-demand recording will be made available to you shortly after the webinar concludes with a link to access as well. If you have any questions, we'd like you to submit them in the Q&A tab on the right side of your screen. This is also where you will find the chat tab, where you can engage with our speakers and your fellow attendance audience members. You can also share your thoughts or just let us know where you're tuning in from. Finally, at the conclusion of our webinar, we will be giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so be sure to stick around so you can find out if you're one of the winners. Let's go ahead and kick off today's topic. We are achieving complete visibility in IT operations, analytics, and security. Today, we will be joined by Mel, who will be helping out with the questions at the end of the program. And of course, our speaker, Ian Hartley, Senior Director of Product Management at Precisely. Ian, thank you so much for joining us today. Go ahead and take over from here.
Thank you for joining this session today. In this session, I'm going to discuss why it makes good business sense to include your mainframe and IBM environments in your modern strategy for IT operations and security. We'll look at where these platforms fit into the big picture and how you can drive efficiencies and savings while adopting a more proactive, agile position, ensuring you're maximizing the investment that you have in today's operational and analytics tools. So I'm Ian Hartley, and it's my pleasure to be talking with you today. Now, my career has been really centered on IT across several platforms. And during my time, I've experienced many evolutions and also some mini revolutions, but I've always had mainframe and IBM somewhere in that mix. So let's start by looking back in the rearview mirror, because it's important to understand where we have come from. Mainframe and IBM have been around for many years, and yet they still exist. And still this really regarded as being the server of excellence for processing huge workloads, handling millions of transactions. And they continue to be an essential component in many IT infrastructures. But both platforms have evolved over the years. Now, I certainly can remember when the mainframe was a mid-wishy-washy blue color, and it certainly wasn't the chiseled black design that we see today. And I certainly also remember that you had to boot it from an 8-inch floppy disk. You had to wait for everything to spin up to speed, mounting tapes in the right order, with or without the protection ring. It really was hands-on operational. You had to clean tape drives, hoover the printers, and disks were large boxes lined up in rows that consumed a huge amount of floor space. Quite a contrast to the latest edition, the Z16 machine that has just arrived from IBM. And it's a similar story with the mid-range computer, also iterated through several editions over the years, from System 38, 36, AS400, as it's still often called, I-Series, System I, up until today's Power 10 systems that have arrived recently. Both mainframe and IBM have origins in really top-down classic data processing, leveraging languages like assembler, COBOL, PL1, RPG, and several others, all with a structured purpose of moving data around, manipulating it, storing it on tapes, getting records into databases, and writing out paper reports.
I didn't get that.
This was how data was processed for many years. Programs were typically created with a single purpose in mind. The concept of an interactive, distributed application was just unknown. Now, of course, some of this still exists today. For example, some organizations still run thousands of batch procedures overnight, absolutely mission critical for them. And It's something that must be available. Everything must run on time. But fundamentally, everything that certainly used to be was on a single platform, the mainframe or the IBMI. And you had to have physical wired access to actually carry out any work. So think about that in contrast with today, and boy, have we really come a long way. So long gone are the days when you had to take, and I've had people tell me this, I haven't actually seen it myself, take a Polaroid photo of the display lights to record a stop condition on the mainframe. Or you could only get a maximum of 2 compilations done every day because you had to wait for the cart to physically deliver the printed listings from your program attempt to see if you got it right. These were the days when working from home was literally the stuff of dreams. But mainframe and IBMI are still very relevant today. They still play a key role in IT infrastructure of many organizations. And in today's environment, mainframe and IBMI often play a part in a wider application context. Of course, we're still moving data around. That's what IT does at a very fundamental level. But things have certainly changed. And in many ways, they are now certainly more complex. Typically, there are more layers, more infrastructure, hardware, middleware components, and the expectation that services are always on, available around the clock every single day of the year. Consequently, there can be a lot of moving parts in any given system or service, and the operational bar for performance and availability is really set very high. Customer expectations generally go up, they don't come down. Even traditional batch work comes with the pressure to meet things like SLAs, ensuring interdependencies with other jobs are running smoothly, delivering data to the right place at the right time. Teams are having to manage critical and significant data volumes all within an overnight processing window. Your 8-hour batch window does not get any larger, but it can certainly get busier. So when you're having to look for any sign of an issue across a wide spectrum of IT, things can become very intense. You need to be able to see things quickly, spot something, and take the appropriate action. Put out that fire before you really get burned, because there are consequences, and often these can be very significant. Given this situation, it's no surprise that we have seen a drive to more centralization of monitoring. Sure, IT operations is no new kid on the block, but gathering key performance indicators, those KPIs, from a diverse set of operational purposes is a focus for many organizations. All need to keep a finger on the pulse of their IT, whether it's for general health, status, compliance, or security reasons. There is a need for a focal point that brings all the essential elements together to get a view of what is happening right now, or what is heading our way, so we can prevent a catastrophe or even a minor blip in availability. This is why we see network operations centers, the NOC, or the SOC, the security operations centers, that need to have a comprehensive view of what is happening across the whole business. Because downtime is very expensive, and it's something that you must avoid at all costs. But please don't just take my word for it. Simply go to Google, look for Atlassian cost of downtime. It's an article that's been out there for a few years, and you'll see their take on how a single minute, 60 seconds of downtime can cost you, how much that really adds up very quickly. When you take into account the impact on customers, loss of sales, orders, failed data processing, missed SLAs, regulatory fines, the damage to your reputation and your corporate brand, the time and effort it takes to get back up and running, the numbers add up very quickly. Gartner, Avaya, and Other organizations have conducted similar studies, and they all have the same conclusion. It is expensive, and you need to avoid any downtime if at all possible. Remember, when something is down, that clock is ticking. The pressure to resolve problems is real, and it increases second by second. So therefore, you must react quickly. Because incidents, unfortunately, do happen. As you can see from these headlines, major organizations do have system outages. And I'm sure they definitely do not plan for them, but when they do occur, they end up being extremely costly, eye-watering numbers. And of course, according to certain laws of dynamics and physics of the universe, these problems are going to happen, and you can almost guarantee they'll happen at the worst possible time. During your busiest time of the year, at the end of the month, Black Friday, the critical time when everything should be running as efficiently as possible, tax day, you name it, there's always some time when you hope things do not go wrong. So you do have to ask yourself about how well you are prepared for these types of situations and whether you can sustain a run rate of $9,000 per minute, 60 seconds, when something does go wrong. Because when that something does happen, there are certainly plenty of people watching. So you have to take on board that the IT industry is becoming more regulated, all because of these kinds of situations. There are now hefty fines when you do something incorrectly or something doesn't happen by a certain date and time. There are stringent rules that drive organizations towards what we now refer to as IT resiliency. So here on the left, you can see information published by the UK's Financial Conduct Authority about a number of outages experienced by UK banks. This is public domain information. They're calling them out. And on the right, there's Down Detector, another website you can look at that is actively looking for and gathering information about service and availability problems. And then there are all the reports that are published on the various social media platforms on a daily basis. And these are generally with a negative sentiment rather than giving organizations praise for a job well done. The net of this, you need to be aware of issues before anyone else. You must have good visibility of the essential indicators that determine the health of your business from all your platforms. Without this kind of visibility, you literally are flying blind. You must be able to see what is or is not occurring with your key systems and services. It's absolutely imperative these days that you are able to see system health and status, just the basics, but see it right now. Because without visibility of the right information at the right time, you simply cannot be agile. You are defaulted to being reactive rather than proactive. So how do you know if all the pieces of system or service are behaving correctly? Are things working well, running within acceptable performance thresholds, or potentially costing you time and money and driving customers away? Ideally, you need to be ahead of any situation by leveraging some kind of solution to capture relevant information to be used to your own advantage. Sounds ideal, I agree. And yet we encounter organizations more frequently than maybe you would imagine that are still getting what we deem to be essential information hours or even days after events actually occur. And this is definitely no way to run your IT infrastructure in an efficient way. It just doesn't stack up. Okay, enough focus on the negative position. Let's look at some positive aspects out of this, because there definitely are some that really, we need to look at. Because IT systems are generally resilient, especially when it comes to mainframe and IBMI. I mean, your mainframe, for example, is even earthquake tested. There's videos on the internet you can look at, and they're quite amusing how they shake them around and see if they fall to pieces. But fundamentally, they are 9 nines, 10 nines, how many nines of resiliency, efficient and everything else you can throw at them. They are solid pieces of machinery. So why would you want to change how you're monitoring these environments? Well, from our experience of working with many customers, it comes down to simply improved visibility into the many aspects of your services that you rely on as a business. As I've already said, these systems and services can be complex, but you still need to know whether something like retail banking is running well, or your insurance quote process is starting to slow down and is beginning to impact your web customers. How do you know that? Where can you get to the information quickly to identify where that trouble lies? It's all about getting those better insights using today's modern tools. This is what they're built for, getting quickly to where the hotspots exist and being able to do something about it sooner than you could before. Seeing something like peaks in processing and exploiting opportunities around improved efficiencies come as an added bonus within this as well, because once you start visualizing data points that are there for you to make use of, it gets very interesting. You can get very creative around what you're making of this. It's also identifying things like what is abnormal as well as what is perfectly normal in your day-to-day operations. So it's all about evolving your view of these systems, making the best use of today's modern tools. We're not talking about turning the world upside down. This is not revolution. It's all just about seeking a better view of how your world exists and how your life is on a day-to-day basis. And Gartner terms this as observability. Now that's a wide term in itself, but in this context, it's the evolution of traditional monitoring, using a holistic view around how to bring data points into a modern observability tooling, something like Splunk or Elastic or others that you can mention. The rationale for this is to gain improved visibility and agility of systems and services, which in turn leads to faster issue identification, resolution, and ultimately improved customer experience. This is what we're all driving for. Gartner's recommendation is that you should supplement your existing monitor practices and your behaviors that you already have to enhance your ability to detect and respond to situation. And this is certainly in line with the way that we approach implementing mainframe and IBMI observability. Some of the companies leading the charge for observability in this context are Splunk and ServiceNow. If you look at Splunk's website, you'll see that they refer to observability as turning data into doing, and they're doing exactly that. They're getting data in and allowing you to do so many different things with it. Similarly, ServiceNow advocates better visibility, insights, and improved problem remediation, what we all want to do. Both promote getting a wider view of IT activities and leveraging essential data points to understand how your systems are actually running, as well as seeing problems sooner so you can get ahead of any situation, even before your customers know there is an issue. Both of these organizations allow that end-to-end system visibility and agility. And this is where network and security operations centers come into their own with their surveillance across everything IT, including mainframe and IBMI. But we do have to ask the question whether any of this is actually relevant to these platforms. Is it relevant to mainframe and IBMI? Now, this is a good question because both platforms have comprehensive monitoring tools that have been around for many, many years. Absolutely true. Well, actually, we answered this with a recent report. earlier this year, precisely partnered with an organization called Changemakers. And we created an industry report that brought together insights from several IT leaders in a roundtable kind of environment, and they shared their daily challenges as well as how mainframe and IBMI fit into their organizations. And everyone agreed that these platforms remain mission critical to their systems and services. They're at the heart of a lot of things that they do as a business. But all of them are moving towards cloud. Some are taking very much a cloud-first approach to everything. And they're moving applications as well as some of their operations to the cloud environment. But they're still exploiting the compute power that these heritage IBM platforms have to offer. They're bringing them alongside this, and they're adopting strategies to mitigate things like loss of certain skill sets. So it's a very dynamic environment, but it's still centered on these IBM platforms in many ways. Now, one of the standout themes was the need to include these environments in the wide view of their monitoring capabilities. As we've said, these platforms have tools and monitors and had them for a very long time, but are they totally applicable in today's context? This also came out in the report that it's not necessarily the best approach to rely totally on these ways of monitoring the health and the status and the trends and everything else you can do with these systems. They all have to ensure that they're getting the best out of these modern tools to maintain their end-to-end visibility so that their teams can be on their game and making sure that they're agile as possible when issues do occur. So mainframe and IBMI remain very important. Basically, they still play a crucial part in many applications because this is where key data is still stored and a lot of processing takes place. So if there is an issue on these significant servers, as they're also called, there can be consequences, and these consequences can be very far-reaching.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
So let's look at how we can put use cases to some good use here, because this is where the fun really starts. We have to understand that mainframe and IBMI have a wealth of information stored away that really is underexploited. And Gartner identified this because both platforms have detailed logs, traces, and metrics around all the activities that take place. And they can provide insights into issues, performance, trends, and even security. And this is what Gartner called dark data. It's extremely useful, but most of it is hidden away and often difficult to get to. And it turns out this is exactly what tools like Splunk and others are here to exploit. They allow you to get access to this information, tap into it, into this machine and log data, and get it to where you can actually make use of it. But the challenge lies in getting it from these hidden locations, delivering it in a meaningful time frame. As we said, 24 hours after the event is really historical information. It's not really telling you something about a situation that needs to be addressed right now. But it's also tackling the generally unfriendly nature of this data and making good sense of it. What can it tell you? Because there really are some genuine nuggets of information in there that really can add value to what you're doing. So remember, it is machine data and it's not necessarily designed for end user consumption. But together, the toolings that we have can actually deliver good value out of this information. But when you get access to this data, you can use it in just so many ways. Things like simple monitoring. This gives you better agility around your data and everything that's related to IT. You can visualize information in so many creative ways, getting better insights into things like health, status, and performance, delivering relevant information to the right people at the right time. Let's think about getting a C-level dashboard put together that shows the health of the business. This is all possible with this kind of tooling. or getting kind of low-level details around transaction response times to make sure that everything's running within acceptable parameters. You know everything is okay. There's also the ability to automate things like alerts and triggers that drive better control of things like mean time to identification and resolution times. There's just so many things you can do with this kind of information, with this kind of tooling. Operation intelligence. This leverages information for historical analysis, trends, capacity planning, and forward predictions using modern tools like machine learning. And when it comes to compliance, the same data can be used to audit activities, prove you are doing the right things, and helping you meet the next set of rules and regulations. And security plays a big part in everything we do in IT. Adding mainframe and IBMI into your security monitoring makes perfect sense. A minute of downtime can be very costly. A few seconds of compromised data could have a severe impact. Some organizations have even gone out of business when this has happened. So you can easily realize dashboards like some of these by using data from these sources for uses like IT operations. Greater insights into activities from across your IT infrastructure. It's really quite simple to get basic metrics going and really realize value out of this data. You can see details around workload peaks, batch activities, real-time transaction response times. There's just a wealth of things that you can do to really get good value from this kind of information. And it's a very similar situation for security. Gathering information in real time is a game changer. Bringing indicators from across your IT into a single space gives you so much opportunity to correlate activities. Is it normal for a privileged user to be entering the building and moving sensitive data at 3 a.m? This could be perfectly fine, but then again, it could be highly unusual and needs to be stopped as soon as possible. Exploiting this type of data gives you the ability to keep on top of situations before it's too late. But even just understanding what exists in your IT landscape can also be really insightful. ServiceNow are, as they say, making work work by bringing workflow into systems. And it all starts by getting a comprehensive view of what exists in your IT infrastructure. Now here what we've done is brought a small mainframe system with just 4 LPARs into a single ServiceNow discovery instance using our Ironstream solution. Once you have discovery scheduled and automated, you can see reliable, accurate, error-free information that can be used for just so many things within ServiceNow. It really is a foundational piece within that platform. But you need that complete CMDB. You need to have mainframe and IBMI in that context. So, okay, what are our customers actually doing with Ironstream and their mainframe and IBMI systems? Here's a well-known global bank, and unfortunately I can't mention any of these organizations today, but you may be able to guess, give or take, who they are. Very well-known organization. They have data centers around the world in several locations, and they needed better insight and agility around their banking operations. Mainframe was in its own ecosphere. It was connected, but treated separately from the rest of IT. Even though mainframe is absolutely core to what they do as a business with things like retail banking, mobile banking, there's just so many key services that rely on mainframe, and yet it was still treated separately in many ways. Because everything was so fragmented, it meant longer times to identify and resolve problems. They could also not get a quick, comprehensive view of service health. How well is retail banking doing? It was really a few phone calls and understanding certain data points. There was no quick answer, one place to go to understand what was actually taking place or not. Now, with Ironstream in the mix and bringing together information from the mainframe into something like Splunk, They have views around all these systems. They have dashboards showing significantly better visibility into their major systems and services. One-stop views that form key parts of their IT infrastructure, so they can quickly see where any issues occur, if they get any kind of notification, but they're also leveraging this information to tell them about issues, to see that there's some things heading in the wrong direction. They're not sat staring at dashboards all day, even though they look very nice. They're actually leveraging that information and putting it to work to better what they're doing, to make them more agile and responsive. Now here's an airline customer that's using security information, again from a mainframe, but it's bringing it in to complete their view of activities. Before the introduction of Ironstream, they had a very, again, siloed view of their situation, of their infrastructure, all around security. They really couldn't see exactly what was going on. It was very fragmented again. So something could have happened, and hours or even days could have passed before they really understood what had taken place. Not a healthy place to be. So they were literally putting the business at risk by keeping everything so separate. Who was monitoring activities on the mainframe? How could they audit interactions with sensitive information and keep tabs on privileged users? Today, they can see activities in Splunk Enterprise Security. Ironstream is delivering real-time data points so that they can react faster than ever before. Because everything is brought together into a single place, they can quickly detect unusual activities and correlate information into a holistic security posture with better surveillance across everything without the need to rely so heavily on subject matter experts and those separate tools. They are literally saving time, reducing the effort to actually get that information, but also maximizing their investment in Splunk while protecting the business at the same time. To me, that's a win-win-win. And here's a major US insurance company that is bringing mainframe and IBMI into service now. Now they have better visibility of what exists on these platforms. Previously, they had mainframe and IBMI, again, off to one side, really disconnected from the rest of the business. No comprehensive view of what exists on these platforms. Their configuration management database, the CMDB, was only focused on distributed, non-mainframe, non-IBMI environments, even though the mainframe and IBMI are incredibly important to the business. Today, they have everything in ServiceNow, where they have better insights into what components exist and how they are related to each other. And this has led to better change control, impact assessment, faster troubleshooting when something starts to run off the rails, as well as improved efficiencies and better use of those resources that they have. Our Ironstream solution allows them to automate the discovery of these environments and get them into a usable context where service maps come into play for that end-to-end visibility of systems and services that run their business. So where does that leave us? Well, in today's high-pressure IT environments, you need to take absolutely every opportunity you can to improve your chances of maintaining a healthy, performant, and secure infrastructure. Data volumes, processing, demands on systems, demands on users, and demands on staff, as well as customer expectations, generally do not go down. They just simply increase year on year. And you need to ensure that you are playing your A game absolutely every day of the year as well. And this is why it makes perfect sense to include your mainframe and IBMI systems into your strategy for your improved visibility. They remain critical as a part of your business and the systems and services that you rely on. So it would be absolutely foolish to actually leave them out of step with the rest of your IT. So Mel, do we have any questions? Looks like your solution could replace some of the monitors we have. Do you see this happening? That is a good question, and I kind of covered that in the earlier slides, but to be honest, we do see both positions around that. Yes, we have customers that do replace monitors, but we don't advocate that necessarily. They come to that conclusion themselves. when you add what Ironstream can bring into this context and bind it together with something like Splunk, you get some good results out of that that give you a conclusion around whether it's sensible to remove those tools for you. We have customers that have kept them and they use them less frequently because they don't have to use them on a day-to-day basis, but they use them in emergency or break glass situations. So it's really up to you as a customer how you want to do that. We don't advocate it either way, but there's a right fit there for you and what you want to do.
Ian, I think we had another one too on,
Okay.
Let's see, if you have a mainframe environment, do you have to bring everything into Splunk?
No, absolutely not. No, I mean, yes, you can if you want to. That's, would be great because you can just do so many things with the data. But I wouldn't recommend bringing everything across because these machines by design generate a lot of log and machine data. That's a good thing. But pick your use cases and work with those because there are certain, as I kind of look at it, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 type data that you will need to focus on. And out of that, you can get some really good data points that can add value into what you're doing. So in short, no, you don't need to bring everything across, but it really will depend on the use cases. But Ironstream has those capabilities built in, so you can really fine tune that and get exactly what you need to answer those questions around that data. Good question.
Great. Okay, I do see another question in your regarding ServiceNow. Are your integrations with ServiceNow certified?
Yeah, I mean, anybody recommend go to the ServiceNow store and have a look for Ironstream, and you will see 6 apps there. We're actually quite proud that yes, they are certified, and we have to go through a very rigorous process with ServiceNow for that certification. We are ahead of the game with the releases that come out generally every 6 months from ServiceNow. So we are certified for the latest, which is San Diego as of this recording. And the other thing that we have for all the apps is we have the Built on Now badge, and we get that by going the extra mile to ensure that we are compliant with how ServiceNow wants us to operate with these apps. Things like how we interact with the ServiceNow infrastructure, but also from making sure that we play fair in the cloud environment, but also beyond that, that we are clean from a security standpoint as well. So we don't get that for free. We have to work hard to get those badges, but we're proud that we've got them. So yes, they are certified, and we have the Built on Now badge as well. All right. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this session.
Outstanding. Thank you again, Ian, for taking the time to join us in our discussion and share your expertise with us. A quick reminder that today's session has been recorded. Following this panel, you will receive an email to access the link to the recording for the on-demand. You can also find the recording on the DevOps website. You'll just need to go to devops.com/webinars, look in the on-demand section, and it will be waiting for you there. Now, for our 4 winners of our $25 gift card to Amazon, we have Marie L., Natalia C., Norbert P., and Brandy P. Congratulations to the 4 of you. Keep an eye on your inbox. Be sure to check your spam folder. There have been times that they do show up there. If you don't receive it, please check back in with me. You can reach out to Jared Harris at Techstrong. Ian, again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I'd also like to thank Precisely for sponsoring today's webinar, and thank each of you for attending the entirety of our presentation. Please take a moment to fill out the survey once we close out of today's session, and we look forward to seeing you on all of our upcoming webinars. Thank you again, and have a great day.